Hello and welcome to Reality Check News Network. I'm your host Dawn, and we'll begin with today's reality check. Unadulterated and non-narrative truth-telling about the things you need to know. Today's subject is everything you needed to know about the coronavirus pandemic. So welcome to this news segment. If you're new to the channel, or new being one of the Lord's people, there's potentially a lot of information that is covered in either previous news segments, or in other various forms of media that are trying to get a very important message out. This particular actual news outlet is meant to focus on the actual truth. No false flag operation narrative here, on this news outlet. And definitely no lying. You will be let know the truth about exactly what you need to know. The coronavirus pandemic is no exception at all. What you need to know about the coronavirus pandemic is also extremely important, so I hope you listen up. I've titled this segment, The Truth About the Coronavirus and Its Origin, and I'll cover all information pertinent to informing you about everything related to the coronavirus pandemic and the post-pandemic wrap-up I've prepared in today's video. With that being stated, let's dive into today's news segment. Not very many people are aware of the events that take place in this world. Beyond what is told to them and explained to them as the cause of any event that gains a large degree of public attention or coverage, much less has there ever been the precedence of any event like the outbreak of the coronavirus to scale, with as much media coverage following the information age. However, the chance that you actually know what happened regarding the pandemic falls somewhere between what media attention the coronavirus pandemic received, what was reported in that coverage, and what you heard from official and non-official sources, and possibly anything stated on social media and factcheck.org, which also seems to have been explicitly involved in making sure what people consider facts about the coronavirus stay in Google's #1 search results. I'm sure for everyone noticed that there was a lot of conflicting information between various sources and media coverage, between official and non-official sources, and the attempt to categorize as much information as possible as misinformation. Between what was categorized as misinformation and what was categorized as information reported about the coronavirus, you might have realized information is controlled, and was controlled in a manner following the pandemic, in a way that might have caught your attention. That being said, what you heard was probably exceptionally confusing. And there's a reason why. There are also certain things that are connected to the coronavirus pandemic, that probably don't necessarily seem related, which are Project Looking Glass. I want to make sure as many people as possible are aware of that. Currently, if you attempt to now research this declassified government project that whistleblowers were responsible for attempting to create awareness about, you might find some attempt to prevent investigation into the government project if you use a search engine and are looking for search results into what the actual project is as search results in search engines are currently populating search results as the first listed result related to the keyword search, Project Looking Glass, as characterizing Project Looking Glass as a now inactive free software project under the GPL to create an innovative 3D desktop environment for Linux, Solaris, and Windows. For anyone who knows what I'm talking about, that is definitely not the Project Looking Glass, declassified government project that is related to the coronavirus pandemic at all. The actual Project Looking Glass I'm talking about, which will be covered in more detail in a later news segment, to establish its connection to the pandemic, is something completely different entirely. It also has a connection to the coronavirus vaccine. Since this is a news channel associated with telling you the truth, let's get started with the source and origin of the coronavirus first. To begin with actual legitimate information regarding the source and origin of the coronavirus and the coronavirus pandemic that you need to know. You might have heard that the coronavirus originated from physical evidence, which indicated that the coronavirus emerged at Wuhan seafood market, in China, responsible for the global pandemic. There is no lack of articles, or quotation sources of information asserting that quotation scientists had solid, physical evidence indicating the COVID pandemic began at Wuhan seafood market. However, for anyone interested in investigating the truth about the coronavirus pandemic, obviously, because all of the problems with the assertion that arose as part of an investigation and certain discovery material, and a massive political battle that ensued shortly after. The best place to start to determine the origin of the coronavirus is a document called the EcoHealth Grant, and a document called the ExaHealth Grant, which is now completely wiped from Google's search engine. Submitted by Dr. Fossey. The ExoHealth Grant proposal, submitted to the federal government by Dr. Fossey for grant funding, was titled Gain of Function Research and became an extreme focus of an investigation related to the coronavirus pandemic itself. An actual legitimate report dated October 21, 2021, that appeared in the National Review and reports covered in the New York Post, and also documented and recorded by various media sources, outline, and I quote, that an admission existed that gain-of-function research was being conducted with NIH money, which is related to the grant I just mentioned. How this relates to the coronavirus pandemic is going to be explained. Associated with the ExaHealth Grant I'm talking about. Despite that admission cited and stated, also recorded in government panels and investigations, and in the National Review, and where traces still exist in the NY Post, by those associated with the grant. FactCheck.org explicitly states, associated with the grant, as Google's #1 search result, and I quote again, the NIH says the EcoHealth Grant didn't fund gain-of-function research. No dispensation was needed as no gain-of-function research was being conducted, a spokesman for EcoHealth told us. 2021. It should seem apparently obvious between what I just covered in this news segment, that something is completely wrong between what various sources are officially reporting, and that there is a concerted effort to eliminate any concept that gain-of-function research was being conducted as associated with a grant titled Gain-of-Function Research, and where it was being conducted, at the Wuhan Lab Institute of Virology. If you read any of those reports or the request for grant funding itself, between the three things you were just informed about: 1. That the virus originated in a seafood market and was determined to be the source and origin of the coronavirus due to physical evidence. 2. That there exists a document titled Gain-of-Function Research that is apparently, just based on the descriptions I provided you, a grant that seems to be an extremely large issue for people associated with gain-of-function research that was investigated to have a connection to the coronavirus pandemic. 3. That multiple sources recorded an admission such a grant existed and that gain-of-function research was funded. And if you research it enough, that even government panels record the admission, and that factcheck.org, a site created specifically to apparently quotation check facts, especially related to the coronavirus, record that statements recorded in official panels are apparently not accurate facts. You might conclude that sources that probably are suggesting any misinformation about the coronavirus, like factcheck.org, are intentionally trying to mislead you with quotation facts. So what is gain-of-function research, and why does it matter anyway? Who cares, right? Wrong. Because this has to do with what winds up in your body, and a way to get it into your body. Because there is an extreme conflict with what was initially reported related to the source and origin of the coronavirus pandemic in relation to the two documents, the ExaHealth Grant and the EcoHealth Grant, as its origin.